Credit cards are not money. They are not an emergency fund, and they are definitely not a status symbol. They are landmines. But unlike a real landmine that explodes the moment you step on it, a credit card is designed to wait. It waits until you are comfortable. It waits until you have built a lifestyle you cannot quite afford, and then, usually on a Tuesday, when you are looking at your bank account and realizing the math simply does not work, it blows up your future. I have spent years looking at how wealth is built, and I can tell you that for every person who gets rich investing, there are 50 who stay poor because they stepped on a landmine they did not even know was buried in their wallet. Today, we are going to walk through the minefield. We are going to uncover the 10 specific traps that turn a useful tool into a financial disaster, and we are going to disarm them one by one. I see this constantly in the financial data. The danger is rarely one dramatic mistake. Nobody wakes up and decides to ruin their credit score on purpose. It is a slow, quiet pattern of small missteps that compound into years of high-interest debt. It is the $20 lunch here and the online subscription there. Before we get into the first trap, I want to make a deal with you. If I point out a landmine that you have already stepped on, do not beat yourself up. Just subscribe to the channel so we can fix it together. This video is the best return on investment you will get for your time this week, because avoiding these mistakes is worth literally hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. Let's get into the first and most subtle landmine. Landmine number 1 is treating your credit limit like it is income. This is a psychological trap that banks rely on. When you log into your app and see a credit limit of $10,000, your brain plays a trick on you. It registers that number as available resources. It feels like money you have, rather than money you can borrow at a terrifying cost. You start swiping for everyday expenses, groceries, gas, a night out, telling yourself you will figure it out later. But swiping a card does not feel like spending money. The pain of parting with cash is absent. You are just waving plastic at a machine, and in return, you get stuff. It feels efficient. It feels modern. But what you are actually doing is signing a contract to pay for today's lunch with next month's paycheck, effectively robbing your future self before you have even done the work to earn that money. Here is the math on why this destroys budgets. Research on consumer debt shows that unsecured credit is the most volatile form of debt a household can carry. When you use credit to bridge the gap between your lifestyle and your actual income, you turn a budgeting problem into an interest problem. If you spend $500 more than you make this month and you put it on a card, you have not solved the deficit. You have just moved it and added a 25% surcharge to it. If you do that for 6 months, you are not just $3,000 in the hole, you are now servicing a debt that grows faster than your salary does. People rely on cards to maintain a certain standard of living when their income is shaky, especially in the middle class. But the math is unforgiving. You are borrowing against future labor. You are eating the grain you haven't harvested yet. The psychological twist here is that it feels like you are managing well until the moment you aren't. It is called consumption smoothing, but in reality, it is stress compounding. When you view your credit limit as a backstop, you stop innovating on your income side. You stop cutting costs, because the card makes the problem go away temporarily. But this leads to worse mental health and fewer options later. When you finally hit the limit, and you will hit the limit, the crash is so much harder because you have no runway left. You have used your safety net as a hammock, and now the ropes are snapping. The solution is a hard mental reset. You have to decide right now that your income sets your lifestyle, not your bank's generosity. The protocol is simple. Never look at your credit limit. It does not exist. The only number that matters is the cash in your checking account. If you cannot pay for it in cash today, you cannot afford it on credit today. Use your cards only for purchases you could pay for immediately, and never, ever view that plastic rectangle as an emergency fund or a salary bonus. It is a payment transmission tool, nothing more. Now, you might be thinking, Tom, I do use my card, but I always make my payments on time. I am a responsible borrower. Well, I have some bad news. You can pay your bill on time every single month and still ruin your financial life for 2 decades. In fact, if you do exactly what the bank asks you to do, you are falling into a trap so deep that your grandchildren might be the ones to climb out of it. Let's talk about the minimum payment scam. Landmine number 2 is making only the minimum payment. This is designed to look like a helping hand. The bank says, hey, you owe us $2,000, but don't worry, just give us $35 and we are cool. It feels manageable. It feels like staying on top of your bills. You see that green check mark on your screen and you think you are winning. But minimum payments are not designed to get you out of debt. They are calculated to keep you in debt for as long as is legally possible. They are structured to cover the interest you accrued last month, plus a tiny, laughable sliver of the principal. Let's look at the horror story in the numbers. If you have a $5,000 balance on a typical card with a 23% interest rate, and you only make the minimum payments, do you know how long it takes to clear that balance? It's not 2 years, it's not 5 years. It can take over 17 years. And in that time, you will pay back thousands more in interest than you originally spent. You are essentially buying a $5,000 used car and paying luxury sedan prices for it over 2 decades. Most of your payment evaporates into interest profit for the bank. You are running on a treadmill that is inclined at 90 degrees. You are sweating, you are paying, but you are standing still while compound interest works against you every single night while you sleep. The psychology here creates what experts call debt fatigue. When you pay and pay, but the balance never goes down, you lose motivation. It causes anxiety and eventual avoidance. You stop opening the statements because the number never changes. This leads to missed payments and damaged credit because you just want to ignore the monster in the room. The bank is counting on this apathy. They want you to feel like this monthly fee is just a subscription to life, rather than a fire you need to put out. Here is the healthy habit. Treat the minimum payment as a red alarm, not a plan. Your goal is always to pay the statement balance in full. But if you are already in the hole, you need to fix a payment amount that is well above the minimum and keep it fixed. If the minimum is $50, you pay $200. As your balance drops, the minimum requirement drops, but you must keep paying that $200. This attacks the principal directly. You have to be aggressive here. The minimum payment is a request from the bank to stay their servant. You need to politely decline. Landmine number 3 is high utilization. You might think, I pay on time, so I'm fine. But your credit score is watching how much of your available credit you are using. This is called your utilization ratio. If you have a $1,000 limit and you carry a $900 balance, even if you pay it off every month, you look risky to the algorithm. The system assumes that if you are maxing out your cards, you are on the brink of financial collapse. It doesn't know you have cash in the bank. It just sees you walking the tightrope. High card balances relative to your limits drag down your credit score significantly. We are talking about drops of 50 to 100 points just because you are using too much of your limit. This makes it harder and more expensive to borrow for real goals like a home or a business. If your score drops, your mortgage rate goes up, and suddenly that house costs you $30,000 more over the life of the loan. High utilization also inflates your minimum payments and leaves you with zero room for error. If you are at 90% utilization and your car breaks down, you have nowhere to go but into default. The trap is thinking that the credit limit is a target. It is not. It is a ceiling. The closer you get to the ceiling, the less air there is in the room. Living at high utilization is stressful because you are always one unexpected expense away from a declined transaction. That embarrassment of having a card declined a dinner, that comes from playing too close to the edge. It creates a low-level hum of anxiety that follows you around. The protocol for a healthy financial future is the 30% rule. Aim to keep each card under 30% of its limit. If you want top-tier scores, keep it under 10%. If you regularly bump against the limit, you don't need a credit limit increase, you need a spending decrease. Fix the root cause. If you are using more than 30% of your available credit, stop using the card until you pay it down. Treat that 30% line as the new max. Most financial gurus will tell you that a credit card is a good backup for emergencies. They say, keep it empty just in case. I am going to tell you that is dangerous advice. If you think a credit card is an emergency fund, you are setting yourself up for a crisis that never ends. Because when you use debt to solve a crisis, you don't solve the crisis. You just make the crisis more expensive. Landmine number 4 is using credit for essentials and calling it an emergency strategy. Experts repeatedly warn that using cards as a substitute for savings is lethal. It starts with groceries. You are a little short this week, so you swipe. Then it is gas, then utilities. Suddenly, your baseline survival depends on a line of credit. This is precarious because credit lines can be cut. During economic downturns, banks often slash credit limits to reduce their risk. If you are relying on that card to buy food and the bank cuts your limit, you are not just broke, you are insolvent. Studies on unsecured debt show that many middle-income households swipe more when income dips or prices rise. They carry these balances for months or years. If you put a $500 emergency car repair on a card and pay it off over 2 years, that repair actually cost you $750. You are paying a premium on your own misfortune. Once cards become your default for essentials, any new shock, job loss, illness, a leak in the roof, lands directly on top of already high balances. The math of compound interest doesn't care that you had a bad month. The psychological toll here is immense. When you are paying for last month's groceries with this month's paycheck, you feel like you are suffocating. You are working hard, but you are not moving forward. It creates a sense of helplessness. You start to feel like the system is rigged against you. And while the system is tough, this specific trap is self-inflicted by a lack of liquidity. You are trying to finance a lifestyle that your income cannot support, using a tool that punishes you for it. The healthy habit is to build a real emergency fund. Start small. Even $500 to $1,000 in cash or a savings account changes everything. That cash is your shield. When the tire blows, you use the cash and the problem is gone. It doesn't follow you home. If you must use a card for a true emergency because you don't have the cash yet, you have to immediately switch to crisis mode. Freeze all discretionary spending. No eating out, no subscriptions, nothing until that balance is zero again. Do not let it linger. Landmine number 5 is the rewards trap. Marketing trains you to focus on points, cashback, and lounge access. You see the slick commercial with the guy in the first class seat and you think, I want that. You tell yourself you are hacking the system by earning points. But convenience is the gateway drug. People start swiping because it is easy and they want the rewards, but then they slowly rely on the cards for more and more. This is called credit creep. You justify a purchase you wouldn't normally make because, hey, I'm getting 2% back. It feels like a discount, but it is actually an upsell. Let's do the math on rewards versus interest. Even the best cards give you maybe 2% cashback, but the interest rate on a revolving balance is usually over 20%. If you carry a $1,000 balance for a year, you pay $200 in interest. The rewards on that spend? Maybe $20. You are losing $180 to get $20. That is a terrible trade. 1 month of carrying a large balance can wipe out 3 years of accumulated points. The banks know this. They spend billions on rewards programs because they know the math works in their favour, not yours. The trap is gamification. The banks have turned spending money into a game where you score points. It triggers the dopamine centres of your brain. You feel productive when you spend. But if you are carrying debt, you are losing the game. You are the fish at the poker table. Data shows card balances in the US have reached over $1 trillion. That is a lot of people chasing points while drowning in interest. Here is the rule. Treat rewards as a bonus only if you always pay in full. If you carry a balance, stop caring about rewards entirely. Your priority is the interest drain. Cut up the rewards card and switch to a lower interest card or cash until you are debt-free. Do not try to earn miles while you are paying 24% interest. It is financially illiterate. We are halfway through the minefield, but the next trap is where people really lose track of reality. It is the shell game. You open a second card to pay off the first, or to get a balance transfer, or just because you maxed out the first one. You think you are managing your debt, but you are actually just hiding it from yourself. And that specific blindness is what turns a manageable problem into a bankruptcy filing. Landmine number 6 is having multiple cards hiding the total problem. Having several cards makes it easy to lose track of your true debt. Each minimum payment looks manageable. $30 here, $40 there. It doesn't look like much. But when you stack them up, you realise you are bleeding cash from 5 different arteries. This fragmentation of debt is dangerous because it lowers your perceived pain. You don't see one big, scary number. You see 5 small, friendly numbers. Patterns analyses show that excessive credit card debt becomes clear when you can't comfortably make more than the minimums on all your cards. If you have 5 cards with $2,000 on each, that is $10,000 of debt. At 20% interest, that is $2,000 a year just in interest payments. But because it is spread out, you don't feel the weight of it until it is too late. You start using one card to pay another, or to cover bills that the first card used to cover. This is the death spiral. In research on consumer debt, this multi-card juggling is associated with higher stress, shame, and serious mental health consequences. You spend so much mental energy just tracking due dates and balances that you have no energy left to actually make more money or fix your budget. It is exhausting. You are playing a shell game where you are the only loser. The shame keeps you from asking for help or consolidating, so you keep juggling until you drop everything. The healthy habit is radical transparency. Keep a single, clear master list. Write down every card, its interest rate, its balance, and its minimum payment. Sum it up. Look at the total number. It will hurt, but you need to see the enemy to fight it. Use a structured payoff method like the debt snowball, where you pay off the smallest balance first to get a win, or the avalanche, where you attack the highest interest rate. And stop opening new cards. You cannot dig your way out of a hole. Landmine number 7 is ignoring interest rates and terms. A lot of people know their card limit, but have no idea what interest rate they are paying. They don't know when their introductory offers expire. That ignorance is expensive. You sign the paper, you check the box, and you assume the bank will be fair. But credit cards often have variable rates. When the central bank raises rates, your APR goes up. You didn't do anything wrong, but suddenly your debt costs more. If you are not paying attention, you are bleeding money you didn't need to lose. Promotional 0% deals are the biggest trap here. They can be useful, but many people miss the expiry date by 1 day, or they make one late payment. If you do that, many contracts have a clause that applies deferred interest. That means they charge you all the interest you would have paid from day one in a single lump sum. You could go from owing 0 interest to owing $500 in a split second because you didn't read the fine print. That is how they get you. They bank on your forgetfulness. The psychology is simple. Financial jargon is boring. We are wired to avoid boring, complex documents. So we skim. We trust. But in finance, what you don't know will hurt you. The banks write these terms to be confusing on purpose. They want you to gloss over the penalty APR section. They want you to focus on the flashy 0% headline. The protocol. Know your numbers. Know the APR on every card you own. Highlight the highest ones. If you use a promo, put the end date in your calendar with a reminder 2 months early. Calculate exactly how much you need to pay monthly to clear the balance before that date and set it on autopay. Do not leave it to chance. Treat the terms and conditions like the rules of engagement in a war. You need to know them better than the enemy does. We are nearing the end, but the final landmines are not about math. They are about how you see yourself. There is a dangerous mindset shift that happens when you carry debt for too long. You start to believe that debt is just a part of life, like gravity or taxes. And once you believe that, you stop fighting it. And that is when you lose not just your money, but your freedom. Landmine number 8 is late payments and fee cascades. One late payment seems like a minor slip-up. You forgot, you were busy, but it can trigger multiple landmines at once. It's not just the $35 late fee. It is the penalty interest rate. It is the damage to your credit score. It is the fact that other lenders might see that late payment and raise your rates on other loans. It is a domino effect. You trip on the rug and you knock over the china cabinet. High balances plus missed payments raise your risk of delinquency. This can push your APR into the penalty range. We are talking nearly 30%. On top of that, a late payment is one of the most damaging events for your credit file. It stays visible for up to 7 years. Think about that. A mistake you made today will still be hurting you when you try to buy a car 7 years from now. It makes future loans more expensive or unavailable right when you most need them. The cost of a late payment isn't $35, it is thousands of dollars in lost opportunity and higher rates over the next decade. The healthy habit is automation. Set up automatic payments for at least the statement minimum, ideally for the full balance, but minimum at a minimum. This ensures you never miss a due date. If cash flow is tight, schedule the due date right after your main paycheck hits your account. And if you do slip once, call your issuer. Seriously, pick up the phone. If you have a strong previous history, they will often waive the fee and reset the rate. But you have to ask. Don't be too proud to negotiate. Landmine number 9 is accepting debt as a permanent companion. Studies on consumer credit show that long-term unsecured debt creates a permanent background radiation of stress. It is associated with depression and foregone medical care. When card balances feel normal, you start planning life around debt. You delay starting a family. You delay buying a home. You stay in a job you hate because you need the steady paycheck to service the debt. You lose your agility. Over time, this undermines your ability to invest. You might earn more money as you get older, but you never feel ahead because each raise disappears into old decisions plus compounding interest. You are paying for the ghost of a lifestyle you lived 5 years ago. But here is landmine number 10, and it is the opposite: avoiding credit entirely. Some people get burned and swear off plastic forever. They go cash only. But that has a hidden cost too. Responsible credit usage builds a positive history that affects far more than future borrowing. Landlords check it. Insurers check it. Employers sometimes check it. Without any history, you look like a ghost to the financial system. You face higher deposits, worse rates, or outright rejections. You are paying a trust tax because you haven't proven you can handle debt. So, how do we walk through this minefield safely? How do we use credit cards as a wealth tool instead of a weapon? First, align card use with your written budget. Every swipe should already exist in a category you have funded. Second, pay in full and on time, always. This turns the card into a free 30-day loan that builds credit and earns perks with zero interest cost. Third, monitor your utilization like a hawk. If it starts climbing, cut spending immediately. And finally, build real buffers outside of credit. Cash is king. Cash is safety. Credit is just a convenience. Credit cards are neutral. They are just plastic and silicon. The landmines are in your habits. The landmines are in the drift, the slow slide from intentional tool to expensive crutch. Keep your use intentional, anchored to your budget, and backed by real savings. If you found this walkthrough helpful, do me a favour. Share this with a friend who might be standing on a landmine right now. You might just save them a fortune. I'm Tom, this is Tom Talks Money, and I will see you in the next one. Stay safe out there.